A SWAT analysis of VGK's opponent, scouting the Panthers, their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We break it all down today, heading into the Stanley Cup final. Coming up ahead right here on Locked On Golden Knights.
Your Locked On Golden Knights, your daily podcast on the Vegas Golden Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hi again, everyone. Tony Cardasco along with Chris Golick. We come to you from Las Vegas, home of the Western Conference champion Vegas Golden Knights.
Yes.
You could find us on Twitter at LockedOnVGK, at Tony Dasco, at TD Chris G. The reason why I messed up your name was because I was laughing. You don't like the SWOT analysis, but we'll get into that.
You always kind of catch me off guard with these things every now and then, so it's pretty funny.
You could find us on YouTube, Locked On VGK, Locked On Golden Knights, that is, and please subscribe there. We are brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today and get started. So, as I frequently do in my marketing realm, if you will, you like that, huh? Okay. So Chris, what I do is I typically, for companies and for brands, I do SWOT analysis where I break down strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, SWOT. And I thought that this might be a decent way to maybe break down the Florida Panthers and then how VGK can counter some of these areas. So can we start off with strengths?
I feel like I'm back in like the corporate work area. Why don't you I'm going to log off. You just handle this one, and I'm going to grab a beer. You'd figure this one out
I don't
yourself.
have a PowerPoint to present, though. Strengths. So Florida's a team that is playing very loose. They're getting great goaltending, as we spoke about yesterday, from Sergei Bobrovsky. And then they're getting timely goals from Matthew Tkachuk, from Alexander Barkov, from Carter Verhaeghe. I mean, a lot of players are stepping up at key moments of time. What really stands out when you talk about the momentum of the Panthers, in the first round, they defeat Boston, and the Bruins finished 43 points ahead of the Panthers. The second round, they finished 19 points behind Toronto, and they dispose of the Maple Leafs. And then the third round, you saw where Florida finished 21 points during the regular season behind Carolina, and they swept the Canes. So I guess that one of their strengths would have to be momentum and confidence. And how could VGK take away some of that confidence of the Florida Panthers?
I mean, you're not going to take the confidence away unless you score first, score often, and give them some doubt. I mean, when is the last time? Okay, so this is interesting. We can have a parallel to Boston, first of all, here. When was the last time Boston felt any pressure this season? Not to take a shot at Cassidy and the Vegas Golden Knights, but that might have been the only time since the season started where the Bruins felt any pressure. They wanted to, they gave Cassidy a nice welcome back, but they wanted to beat the Golden Knights, and they wanted to beat their old coach the same way the Golden Knights wanted to beat Pete DeBoer and his welcome back nights. Outside of that, there was not much pressure. So let's go to the Florida Panthers for a second. They come in as the 8th seed. They're supposed to get crushed by the Bruins, right? Well, that's not how it goes. They win and they advance. Okay. They're on house money. They're playing loose and free. They got nothing to lose, right? Then here comes the "we want Florida" chants, right? We want Florida. And well, Toronto's gone in 5. Okay. Again, not much stress that series for the Florida Panthers. So let's go to the next series. They sweep the Hurricanes. Yes, it was a close series and all that, but they sweep them. So they haven't played a lot of high pressure games, and that's a credit to them as much as it could possibly be a way to beat them. They're going to feel pressure this series. They're going to feel pressure from trying to get their legs under them in the first period after a long layoff. They're going to feel pressure. They don't have a whole lot of players with the Stanley Cup pedigree like the Golden Knights. There was we highlighted this on one of our shows maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. about the amount of players who have Stanley Cup appearances, Stanley Cup victories, and VGK was going away as far as I think the final 4 teams. They had much more experience. So that's going to create pressure for Florida. So that's where VGK has to find ways to use their experience parlayed, if you will, with the long layoff to, really get a quick strike on Florida. And for the first time in maybe 2.5, 3 weeks, make Florida feel some pressure, make them feel some doubts. And not that they can't respond, but I'd rather them, feeling a little bit of doubt after game 1, or at least after the first period, versus all high and mighty as they should feel coming into the Stanley Cup final, given how well they've been playing.
Another strength of the Florida Panthers, their forecheck. And I go back to the second meeting, Chris, against VGK, where Paul Maurice had said at the time, I recalled him saying that his team was doing too much east-west skating. And then in the third period, they really started to lay it on the VGK. They won that game 2-1, not going away by any means. And they got some great goaltending by Bobrovsky in that contest. But again, they won the board battles. They were quicker to the puck. And the forecheck is one of the strengths, I think, of this Florida team. And they like to play from the goal line coming in front of the net. And they're very strong in the slot area as well.
That game, we're going back to the March the 7th game where VGK played in Florida, lost 2-1, like you said. VGK had just beaten Carolina, New Jersey.
They had a 3-game winning streak,
Montreal,
right?
nice 3-game winning streak.
And then their first of 5 games on the road, right?
Yeah, and then they won the last 4, which was amazing after that. And then they came back and got crushed by Calgary. Another story for another time. But, they had a full day off in Florida. And that was the one thing that I said going into it was South Beach, was Miami going to be our Vegas flu, so to speak, for the boys, right? And Bruce Cassidy led the train on the beach there. I mean, he definitely he had some Miami flu going, as we saw by that that was not a spray tan. That definitely was not a spray tan. He fell asleep by the pool or on the beach or something.
Playing golf.
Exactly. But I do remember that game, and Bobrovsky was very good in that game. What were the shots? It just didn't feel like much was happening. We only got 23 shots on goal that game, and it just didn't feel. Bobrovsky makes 31 saves for Panthers and win against Golden Knights. Okay, this is weird.
And I think it was 40 saves for Hill.
But here, hold on. Was
that right?
So no, yes and no. So according to the NHL Network, right there it is.
Okay.
You can't see it too well with the way my camera is, but it says VGK had 23 shots. Bobrovsky makes 31 saves for Panthers and win against Knights.
It was 31 though.
Hill stops 40 for Vegas. So the Panthers had 30. The Panthers had 34 shots on goal according to the score sheet right there. So point is, the NHL Network and maybe an early WTF, they're screwed up in all sorts, right? They have, when you search Aiden Hill on the NHL Network for stats and stuff, there's a beautiful picture of him as an Arizona Coyote, and now they can't even get their stats right for a game that happened between the 2 Stanley Cup contenders. Like, come on, NHL.com. So WTW, what the Wednesday?
Okay. It is Wednesday night, and this is Thursday's show, just to get it straight. And tomorrow, of course, is WTF, the Friday. Physicality, another strength of the Florida Panthers. And you texted me earlier today, and I was watching the series there where
okay, you're not talking about the other text, good.
No, not the other text. That was X-rated. No, that was R-rated. Radko Gudas, 312 hits this season, second in the league. And then we saw in that last series, poor Seth Jarvis got drilled into the boards. I mean, you had better keep your head on a swivel when it comes to watching Radko Gudas there anytime that he's on the ice.
He's a tank, and I think my exact text was the dude's going to kill somebody this series. If I have to be frank,
good to know.
Yeah, I mean, he is. He is going to make. I was in the article I was writing today that'll be coming out for Inside the Rink tomorrow. I was writing about Judas or Rukas. I'm sorry.
You were writing. You wrote a story.
I did write a story. Yeah.
Okay. Are you going to post it tomorrow too?
It'll get posted. I do have clearance from Locked On to talk about this, so that's a good thing. Radko Gudas, and forgive me, Florida Panthers. I was not taking a thank you. I was not taking a shot there. I just legitimately forgot his name.
Side gig.
Little. Is that the S? And never mind. It's my side piece, Tony. It's my side piece. So back to
physicality.
Yes, back to Radko Gudas. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not doing this on purpose, Florida fans. I promise, I'm not doing this on purpose. Radko Gudas, and I'll tell you right now, by the end of the series, by the end of the first period, I'm going to know the dude's name very well, because he's going to be possibly public enemy number 2 behind Matt Tkachuk. And I mean that almost as a term of endearment, because I love the way the guy plays. I've loved watching him. I've loved watching him all the way through, and just there's something about just when he's on the ice, it's just, something fun is going to happen. And unfortunately, it's not going to be fun in about 67, 65, 63 hours from now watching him. It's like my love affair for Connor McDavid, right? Well, we put that aside, obviously, when Edmonton came to town, and now we're back on speaking terms again. I'm going to have the same level of enjoyment for watching him this series. And, you really have to wonder if he is going to wear down the VGK forwards. Winning hurts, right? We hear about this all the time. That's the big t-shirt that you're seeing in the locker room after the games and everything. He is going to make winning hurts or losing hurt even worse, I guess, depending on how you want to look at it. And, Mark Stone, this guy is going to chop down Mark Stone worse than anything he's faced in the playoffs so far. William Karlsson, can William Karlsson, get a comfortable spot in the slot with them? I know you're going to jump on that. Marchessault will give it back to him, but at the end of the day, Marchessault, he'll flick him aside just by basically on the size disadvantage. So, he's going to be very tough to get inside against. And the hope is that VGK finds a way. And I mean, there's some opportunity there with him, and we'll highlight that in our next segment or whenever we talk about strengths and stuff like that, because it's not strengths.
All. Next one is weaknesses.
Okay, but I'm looking for a VGK strength in this.
Okay, so we could come out of their weaknesses. One other strength here, in the effort of time here, coaching.
Already?
I think, already, exactly.
Oh, nice.
I believe that Paul Maurice is a strength. He's a good coach, and he's not going to make some bonehead moves. I think he will benefit from his good friend Pete DeBoer helping him to game plan against VGK.
I hope so. Be a good
I knew
idea.
you'd like that one, especially with that leaky defense. But it's crazy because you go back and Maurice lost to VGK in 2018 in the WCF. And it's so funny because Maurice goes from the West Coast to the East Coast, and Cassidy comes from the East, and he moves west to Las Vegas. So, and Cassidy, apparently feels as though he knows all the talent and the teams from the East. And so this is going to be a good matchup, I believe, of coaching. And I think that Maurice is a strength behind the bench. And hey, I mean, he's got this team buzzing and playing well. You don't like that strength.
No, I do, but I've always kind of thought
I'm not
Paul
saying
Maurice.
He's stronger than Cassidy. I just think Maurice is a good coach that's going to get a lot out of his players and knows when to get under their skin and when to tell them to pick it up.
Okay, I'm going to read you his history going back to 95 when he was leading the Hartford Whalers.
I know, and that's another thing that gives him clout. A coach of the Hartford Whalers, the Whale.
It's pretty cool, actually. All right, out of playoffs, lost in round 1, out of playoffs, lost in round 1, lost in finals, but I think they got swept, if I'm not mistaken, that series. That was when he was with the Hurricanes, 01-02. After that, out of playoffs. It looks like he something happened. They didn't say anything for next season. Lost in round 1, out of playoffs. Lost in round 3 in 08-09. Out of playoffs. Lost in round 1 when he apparently coached the Magnitogorsk Metallberg. I don't know what happened there, but whatever. And then now Winnipeg Jets starting in 13-14. Out of playoffs. Lost in round 1. Out of playoffs. Lost in round 3 in 27-18 to the Vegas Golden Knights. We'll talk about that in a second. Lost in round 1, bubble, lost in the qualifying round, lost in round 2, out of playoffs. And then obviously now with Florida, he has won 3 rounds. So dude's been around the block. We can
and they were calling for his job back, in November, December. There are a lot of articles calling for his job. Before we go to a break, this is a team, I think that this is a strength, although this is a really good matchup. Again, I like the dynamics between when you talk about special teams, you have a Panthers team, Chris, that takes a lot of penalties versus a team that doesn't commit very many penalties. So that will be an intriguing matchup too. But I think that that is a strength because VGK has done remarkable work in 5-on-5, but a man down, not so well.
True. And, that's something that Vegas needs to continue with. Their penalty kill is okay. And they haven't been on the ice that much. So that's why some of the numbers might be skewed a little bit. And of course, that series against Edmonton is going to skew anyone's numbers. I wonder if you do take away the Edmonton goals and all that, where their penalty kill percentage would lie. That would be an interesting thing if I felt like putting the research in, but I honestly don't. But point being is, the penalty kill for Vegas always has been somewhat decent. I don't think we've seen a power kill goal yet between Riley Smith and your favorite William Karlsson. So maybe
Have
got
we
one
seen
of those
any
up
shot
sleeve.
passes in the playoffs?
Yeah, shot passes.
I think I saw
exactly.
one or two. Yeah, in the
it was a good
playoffs.
stick. It was a good stick too that led to that, Tony.
And there were a lot of twigs on the ice as well. Coming up next, we've got our SWAT analysis continuing here with the look at the opponent and the weaknesses of the Panthers. That's all ahead right here on Locked On Golden Knights. Make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs because right now, new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. And some of the things that we really like about FanDuel, great promotions each and every day. It's a safe and secure app, and you can get paid instantly. There's no better place, again, for the playoff action, the NBA plus the NHL, of course, than America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the National Basketball Association. Welcome back to Locked On Golden Knights. Tony Cardasco and Chris Golick from Las Vegas. We appreciate you making us your first listen each and every day. And because you do, just unbelievable numbers for the past month. We definitely appreciate all of you out there that make this a priority each and every day to listen to Chris Golick and the other guy. And then don't forget, coming up on Friday, it's What the Friday. On Saturday, a special crossover edition. And I'm sure we'll have much, much more coming up here as we continue with the Stanley Cup final. But we're taking a look at our SWOT analysis. We started off with the S word, strength, the strengths. And now we're going to advance to the W. If you are following along at home, the W, weaknesses of the Panthers. Rest versus rust is at the top of the list. I think, to me, it will have been 9 days, Chris, between games for the Panthers. Beneficial, perhaps, for Sergei Bobrovsky, who had an illness earlier this season. He had a lower body injury. He started off slow, and I think that it will perhaps benefit him the most. But how do you feel about rest versus rust in this series? Is that a weakness that they might come out very rusty against VGK on Saturday?
Stats and trends, and especially weird betting trends, really don't mean a whole lot to me. But once I found out that the team who has had more rest in the last 10 Stanley Cup finals, the team that's had more rest is 1-9, meaning only one in the last 10 years, the team that's had more rest has actually won the Stanley Cup. Vegas has less rest. They're coming off like basically a traditional. I mean, you have some 4-day breaks in the regular season, not too many. This is basically a bye week for the VGK as far as how many days they'll go without playing a game, where this is nearly a 2-week break for the Florida Panthers. And that's definitely going to be a weakness for the Panthers and something the Vegas Golden Knights can capitalize on. Is it going to benefit Bobrovsky? I don't know. As far as his health, sure. But timing and getting, he has to get back to game speed right away, and you cannot replicate game speed. You can't. And in the playoffs, you don't practice a lot as it is. So this is a weird time for the Florida Panthers, and you're going to have all the hoopla that goes on with game one and everything, and they're going to come ready to play. There's no doubt about that. It will take time to get their legs under them, though.
I want to continue with weaknesses and Bobrovsky because he could revert back to the way he played earlier. He did allow 17 goals against Boston, 17 goals in less than 5 games, and he could revert back to that old form. And the NHL.com today had a story that said 6 of the 17 Bruins shots that were goals were high blocker side. So that's where VGK has to aim. Carolina, 4 goals of the 6, high blocker side. VGK needs to aim high. I think that will be a key. And I think that that's one of the areas that VGK, one of the weaknesses that they have to exploit.
Line 4, I think I want to talk about right now for the Florida Panthers, looking at their stats and stuff. We're looking at Ryan Lundberg, Eric Stahl, Colin Whites. Starting, and we'll compare with our line 4 as well. Here, I'll try to keep the microphone so we get a weird echo going on here. Ryan Lundberg is, let's see here.
He had a goal. He had the winning goal, I think, in that game in Florida.
He did, but that was the only goal he has of these
all season.
Of the. I mean, he's played 8 games in the Stanley Cup playoffs. He's got 1 goal. Yep. Eric Stahl, 3 points. He's a -4. Now he's probably getting a lot of responsibility playing against the other team's best players, but still. And then Colin White is the other player on that line. And Colin White is a -4 with just 2 assists. So now let's compare with the VGK line 4, which is kind of weird, but we can even talk about Howden too in this, but Nick
Waz got to start. He's got to start. They had a different kind of energy and jump. He has to be the starter on line 4.
I'm with you. He's got 9 assists. Now, part of that's from his time up with line 2, but still, he's contributing at a very high level. Even if Howden is on line 4 at some point, that's 6 points. He's a +4. Keegan Colasar, he's got 2 goals and 3 assists, +1. And then Carrier, he's 2 and 2, and he's even
2 backhanded goals. That's
right?
When you know things are going great on the backhand.
So you look at that, and even the matchup of line 3 to line 4 is very similar as well. As far as Mark Stone, Sam Reinhart. Stone currently has 15 points, only a +3 for Mark Stone, which that's kind of interesting, but still 15 points versus Reinhart, who has 11 points +1. So it's similar. Anton Lundell, the rookie, or at least he has a recent rookie card. So I don't know if he's still a rookie or not, but still, he's a younger player who's going to have a big responsibility. He's got 1 goal and 7 assists versus Chandler Stevenson, 8 and 6, 14 points. Lustarian, pardon me, said that the wrong way. I haven't done enough research.
He'll be back,
here.
By the way. He was out. He got injured in the Carolina series, but he's fine.
Looks like, looking at his games played, he's only 5 points and a +4. So that right there, folks, on top of the goalies, on top of the coaching matchup, really it's going to be a series of the bottom 6. Goalie versus goalie, Hill versus Bobrovsky, that's the first thing to watch. Maurice versus Cassidy and the adjustments, yes, but really the biggest strength that the Vegas Golden Knights may possess is the bottom 6, which will in turn be the biggest weakness for the Florida Panthers. It's a weakness by virtue of strength for the Golden Knights. And if the Vegas Golden Knights are going to be triumphant in the series, we're going to be talking about line 4. We're going to be talking about what Carrier did and Nick Waugh and Keegan Colasar. Stone, Stevenson, they should do what they're going to do, and they're going to be just fine. And Howden or whoever they match up on that line, I know they've been shoveling people around a little bit. It's going to be just fine. Our line 3 is going to do it. So if line 3 can cancel out, their line 2, our line 4 does what they've been doing for the last couple of rounds. It might be a lot of fun.
At the very least, TNT will know who's playing on the bottom 6 in this series. Florida's defense at times, Chris, not good. During the course of the regular season, ranked 21st, where they gave up 3.32 goals per game. They allowed 32 shots, 31.7 shots per game, and that put them in the bottom 3rd. So VGK will definitely have opportunities. To your point, something that you mentioned on the show yesterday, they'll have a lot of opportunities to score goals. It's whether or not the goaltender, Bobrovsky, can stand up.
Bobrovsky has faced an average of 36 shots per game in the Stanley Cup playoffs. VGK is not scared to shoot, but VGK also knows.
Other than Jack Eichel at times. Okay.
Fair enough.
From that left circle, man, let it fly, brother.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's a couple times, like, and you saw when he finally did on that power play, he banged one off the post. So, that's, listen, I'm glad he saved his goals for the final, hopefully. But back to where I was going with this, 36 shots per game is what Bobrovsky faces. You go back to the money puck stats about his expected goals against, goals saved above expected are way above anyone else in the playoffs right now on a percentage base here. So the point is that, yes, Bobrovsky's been playing absolutely remarkable, but there's going to be opportunities. We talked about this earlier. Again, another weakness. Can he do this for 4, 5, 6, or 7 more games as far as saving all these shots he shouldn't be? Maybe. He definitely is capable of it, but he also might have crested a little bit too. And maybe this is where the layoff might slow the momentum down. If you ask anyone on the Panthers, they probably would have wanted to have 1 day off, maybe 2 days off and get going. VGK probably wish the game started probably tomorrow night as well.
And some other things, just another couple of notes here. I was looking at stats for Aaron Ekblad. He was minus 14 during the season, but he's +8 in the playoffs. And again, they are going to have to rely on some of these unsung heroes either team, I guess, if they're going to prevail. And then we could get into this more after the following break here. But VGK 5-on-5 in the playoffs. Have you seen the stats? 48-23.
I did see that, actually.
48-23. Coming up next, we will continue with our SWAT analysis, and we will take a look at opportunities and threats. It's all ahead right here on Locked On Golden Knights. We are back on Locked On Golden Knights. Tony Cardasco and Chris Golick from Las Vegas. We appreciate you making us your first listen each and every day. Of course, coming up, Friday show, WTF, What the Friday. And they're not actually hashtagging WTF.
I got an early one. I got cleaned up today. Am I supposed to do this during the playoffs?
It's a little high and tight. Yeah, a little high and tight.
Am I supposed to do this?
I should not have the playoff beard. And folks today were also asking me on Twitter if I was going to be attending the victory parade. Will the city of Las Vegas still try to have a parade like they did in 2018 if VGK loses?
I hope that doesn't get. I hope that doesn't get out. Yeah,
Worst
that was stupid.
Idea ever.
That was dumb.
Let's get back into things here. Opportunities for both teams. I think the biggest opportunity, the team that wins captures their first Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of cool by itself.
Yeah, and the head coaches will each have won their first Stanley Cup. Maurice failed back in 2002 with the Canes/Whalers, and 2019 was when Cassidy lost to St. Louis. And there was a good story as well today about Jack Eichel was in the crowd for Game 7 because Ryan O'Reilly and him were good friends and former teammates, I guess, at one point, right? And so he was in the crowd. He said, wow, that was a cool thing and be great to win a Stanley Cup. Everyone was so excited, and it was just such a great scene. But in any event, I think those are the two biggest opportunities, and Florida could become the first number 16 seed to win the Cup too. Man.
I think their record was actually even lower than that. I think they were like 18th overall, but 16 in the playoffs. Yes, I get all that. I'm trying to look up how the games went here. As far as, was it a 5-game series? It looks like, yeah, it looks like, okay. So it looks like Carolina won 1 game. So Paul Maurice has 1 Stanley Cup Finals game victory versus Cassidy, who I guess has 3, right? So, I mean, that could play a part. That could certainly be a threat, I guess, to the Florida Panthers.
Yeah. And then we take a look.
That's all I got there, bro.
No, an opportunity for VGK is to play fast. I think that is probably, again, speed through the neutral zone. That is going to be a major key. And does VGK have a little advantage there?
Yeah. So I think if Florida's going to have an aggressive forecheck, I'm okay with that. I mean, yes, we saw some turnovers and stuff like that, but that is a riskier. It depends on how aggressive they get, right? If we're talking like a full court press, give it maybe a little bit of time. VGK will tear that apart and get speed through the neutral zone. If they, maybe kind of start the pressure just inside the blue line, trying to slow down the speed across the neutral zone, that's a little tougher for Vegas to deal with. And I think you'll see, it changing throughout the game. The Florida will do a couple shifts where they do a full court press, then they'll back off a little bit and try and make VGK guess what they're going to do. So that could be, a threat as much as it could be an opportunity for the Golden Knights. We've seen the Golden Knights struggle with teams going through the neutral zone when they do muddy that area up, and then they have to have that willingness to get the puck deep and battle. And Cassidy's been saying this since I think probably sometime in the preseason: win your races, win your battles. If you do those two things, you're going to set yourself up. I mean, it's all about just doing the same thing I tell my kid. And now that the Silver State Young Guns 10U team at Lifeguard Arena, it's not about doing the big things. If you do enough of the little things, good things will happen. Opportunities will come. Then it's about which coach can motivate their team to do that at a near 100% pace on the ice, because one slip could do it. One slip could, you saw with Zach Whitecloud when he coughed one up in Dallas the other night, how fast that could cause a turnover against Dallas.
Was Whitecloud something like a +10 in the playoffs? I thought I saw something number like that.
I'll tell you exactly.
So we had opportunities.
+11, Tony, +11.
+11.
And he was +22 in the injury year. Remember that? That was a big thing that I kept talking about with all the injuries. +22.
There's an unsung hero for you for VGK.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, because that was up until the 5th goal. And of course, they don't update stats on ESPN. We don't have to worry about that anymore. Some of the threats would probably have to include the slot play of Florida, Bobrovsky if he gets in a zone, Chucky Tkachuk.
That's the first time we really mentioned, because I think it's the second time we mentioned Tkachuk in this show. I think we missed the boat on that one.
Remember, he said bus and 10. Physicality, I think. And then also another threat might be rats on the ice if Florida wins. That goes back, by the way, to 1996. Scott Mellenby, right? The year of the rat, where he killed a rat in the locker room with his hockey stick, with his twig. And then fans started throwing rats onto the ice. And that was the year of the rat in 96. That was wonderful.
That's fun.
Any thoughts on threats here before we get out of the way here?
I mean, I think, Matt, if we're talking from the Florida side, that's a threat to VGK. Matt Tkachuk, definitely. I mean, we talked about him a little bit on yesterday's show. Matt Tkachuk's stat line heading in.
Another 100-point scorer.
Yeah, another 100 points. He's got 21 points in 16 games, Tony. And he's got 9 goals. I can count at least 3 huge goals just in the last series by itself. I mean, hopefully they don't do a walk-off in Vegas if they win a game in overtime and just, get out of town. Although hopefully he knows that they go out on the bench side. He doesn't try to go out in one of the corners because they don't have all of carpet. His skates will get dull. But
I got to ask you this question. Are the Florida Panthers too reliant on Matthew Tkachuk? Whereas VGK and its 4 lines, and you mentioned all those stats earlier, that they have more depth again going into this series.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players in double-digit points for the Florida Panthers versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for the Vegas Golden Knights. But then you look at amount of players with 5 and more points. That's an additional 1, 2, 3, 4, like another 7 players, where that's like another 9 players for the Golden Knights. So Golden Knight, I mean, this isn't like the Oilers where it's the Matt Tkachuk and Aaron Ekblad or who else is going to have all their points. Verhaeghe, right? It's not going to be, and Barkov. It's not going to be like Edmonton, Draisaitl, and McDavid, but it's going to be a little bit similar in the sense that they have a lot more top end scoring. So, this is where William Karlsson might not be the unsung, but the hero if he can slow down. He's going to be out there, Matt Tkachuk a ton. He's the number 1 threat, right? This is a Cassidy taking a page out of the Belichick book, right? Eliminate the team's biggest threats and then make them beat you with their other talents. It worked against Edmonton just fine. So let's see if, do your job, right, Tony? Do your job.
If you can't beat them, slash them. That's going to be the theme.
That's Alex Petrangelo's shirt, by the way.
That's his shirt. Coming up on tomorrow's show.
So
I know it's pretty bad.
Perfect way to end it.
Coming up on tomorrow's show, it's WTF, or on Friday's show, I should say. WTF, what the Friday. Line up your, again, your comments, anything, everything's fair game. We appreciate it.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, we'd like to thank our everydayers, those that make this show their first listen each and every day. Get on board, and we appreciate, again, all your comments, all your listens, all your downloads, and all your subscriptions. For my man, Chris Golick, I'm Tony Cardasco from Las Vegas. We'll see you again tomorrow right here on Locked On Golden Knights.